The Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi series are, without a doubt, some of the most influential Dragon Ball games out there. Sparking Zero, the fourth mainline game of the franchise, is set to release on October 8th of this year. In case you're wondering why it's called that and not Tenkaichi 4, the series is called Sparking in Japan. Not sure why we decided to use their title this time. This series is so widely loved that it's getting a new installment today, 17 years after Tenkaichi 3 was released. Crazy to think about how long it's been. What a great time that was. Anyway, I digress. This new game seems like it has what it takes to be the best Dragon Ball game in years, so what's the problem? The problem is DLC. What is DLC? DLC is downloadable content that is sold after a game's initial release. New characters, levels, you name it. This is a great idea on paper, but more often than not it's just an excuse to sell you an unfinished product and squeeze a few extra pennies out of you later. Now that's a pretty scary thought, but imagine you buy this content and want to revisit this game years down the line, only to discover that all the DLC you bought for it has now been delisted and there's no way to get it back. There are many such cases in the modern gaming industry, but it wasn't always like that. DLC can be used for great things like adding new characters or levels after you've already completed development of your game. The issue I'm bringing up right now is when these companies plan DLC before the game has even released, when they could have just included whatever they're going to add in the base game. Mortal Kombat X had this problem when it first dropped. Many fan-favorite characters that were literally featured on the game's physical disc were locked behind a $5 purchase before it would allow you to use them. I'm not saying this practice didn't exist back in 2007, but it sure didn't affect the Tenkaichi series. My argument could be applied to DLC as a whole, but the point I'm trying to make is that Budokai Tenkaichi 3 released to the public with 98 characters, over 160 if you count transformations. Nearly every major character to ever appear in this franchise was in this game at its launch. Compare that to Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, which has quite a few characters but has been slowly adding more and more character packs over the last 8 years. More than 45 characters have been added with DLC, and it still doesn't have as many as Tenkaichi 3 did at launch. I'm sure the millions they made off DLC packs are probably why this game is even possible today, but it's just disappointing that they could do so much more back in 2007. That may just be a problem with the gaming industry as a whole. Another thing that's always bugged me in Xenoverse 2 was the lack of a GT saga in the main story. Super was still in its infancy at the time, so I can understand that, but it was in Xenoverse 1 as a DLC, of course. It was in every Tenkaichi game story mode as well.
So that's the Super Saiyan 4 I've heard so much about.
Yeah, I am. And now, not even the heat of the sun can hurt me.
That's one of the shows, man. If you can make me fight Raditz in every single game, you can at least give me this. This argument applies to original Dragon Ball as well. I know everyone loves Z, but the best way to get people into these other parts of the franchise is by putting them in this exciting new game as a bonus saga. It's just upsetting to me that it seems like they're willing to exclude major parts of the franchise that have been there long before Dragon Ball Super came around. In this celebration of all things Dragon Ball, I really hope every aspect of the franchise, except that one, is included at launch and they do what-if characters or Dragon Ball Heroes stuff for the DLC. Or, you know, characters from Super that is still actively being made. Super Saiyan 4 Goku is my favorite design and form that Goku has ever taken. Most people seem to be in agreement that it's pretty much the coolest looking thing ever, so I'm sure he'll end up in the game one way or another. The inclusion of Super Saiyan 4 Goku back in Budokai 3 was groundbreaking, and there were GT story modes in all the Tenkaichi games, Infinite World, and Ultimate Tenkaichi. This is a part of the franchise that deserves to be included and not just glossed over for a few DLC characters. My friends and I spend countless hours speculating who will make it in and eagerly awaiting the next trailer. This image from one of the recent trailers seems to show an image of baby Vegeta in his golden great ape form. It's blurry, but it looks like that's what it could be. I've also been made aware that Goku's English dub voice actor, Sean Schemmel, confirmed he did voice work for Super Saiyan 4 Goku at a convention.
But the tricky part, and I gotta give Damon Mills some credit here because he's been directing me on this last game we've been working on, and keeping track of, I didn't realize that subtly changing the voice for every single form was gonna bite me in the ass later. And so keeping track of all that for like Super Saiyan 4, Super Saiyan 3, God Mode Red Hair, God Mode, and it's all real subtle different things, you know?
Let's hope that's a sign of things to come. My hope is that these characters make it in the game at launch and are included somewhere in the main story. I want to play as Goku Black or Super Saiyan God Goku and be able to make them fight against the characters that clearly inspired their creation. This game looks like it's going to be something special, and I want every fan to have their perfect Dragon Ball game. And who doesn't want to remake this?
You best give up.
Check out my extra life!